Hello there, members and people of the podcast. Let's continue with Joan of Arc. Tinsel trappings of nobility. It was vexatious to see what to do the whole town, and next the whole country made over the news. Joan of Arc ennobled by the king. People went dizzy with wonder and delight over it. You cannot imagine how she was gaped at, stared at, envied. Why would one have supposed that some great unfortunate thing had happened to her? But we did not think any great things of it. To our minds, no mere human hand could add glory to Joan of Arc. To us, she was the sun soaring in the heavens, and her new nobility a candle. Stop of it. To us, it was swallowed up and lost in her own light, and she was as indifferent to it and as unconscious of it as the other son would have been. But it was different with her brothers. They were proud and happy in their dignity, which was quite natural, and Joan was glad it had been conferred. When she saw how pleased they were, it was a clever thought in the king to outflank her scruples by marching on them under shelter of her love for her family and her kin. Jean and Pierre sported their coats of arms right away, and their society was courted by everybody. The nobles and common alike, the standard-bearer said, with some touch of bitterness, that he could see that they just felt good to be alive. They were so soaked with the comfort of their glory, and didn't like to sleep at all, because when they were asleep they didn't know they were noble, and so sleep was a clean loss of time. And then he said, "They can't take precedence of me in military functions and state ceremonies, but when it comes to civil ones and society affairs, I judge they'll cuddle coolly in behind you and the knights, and Noel and I will have to walk behind them." Hey? Yes, I said. I think you're right. I was just afraid of it. Just afraid of it, said the standard-bearer with a sigh. Afraid of it. I'm talking like a fool. Of course I knew it. Yes, I was talking like a fool. No, Régison said musingly. Yes, I noticed something natural about the tone of it. We others laughed. Oh, you did you? You think you are very clever, don't you? I'll take and wring your neck for you one of these days, no Régison. The Sieur de Metz said, Paladin, your fears haven't reached the top notch. They are way below the grand possibilities. Didn't it occur to you that in civil and society functions they will take precedence of all the rest of the personal staff? Every one of us. Oh, come. You'll find it so. Look at their escutcheon. Its chiefest feature is the lilies of France. It's royal, man royal. Do you understand the size of that? The lilies are there by authority of the king. Do you understand the size of that? Though not in detail and entirety. They do nevertheless substantially quarter the arms of France in their coat. Imagine it, consider it, measure the magnitude of it. We walk in front of those boys. Bless you, you've done that for the last time. In my opinion, there isn't a lay lord in this whole region who can walk in front of them except the Duc d'Alençon, Prince of the Blood. You could have knocked the paladin down with a feather. He seemed to actually turn pale. He worked his lips a moment without getting anything out. Then it came. I didn't know that. Nor the half of it. How could I? I've been an idiot. I see it now. I've been an idiot. I met them this morning. And I sung hello to them, just as I would to anybody. I didn't mean to be ill-mannered, but I didn't know. I didn't know the half of this that you're telling me. I've been an ass. Yes, that's all there is to it. I've been an ass. Noel Régison said, in a kind of weary way, Yes, that is likely enough, but I don't see why you should seem surprised at it. You don't you? Well, why don't you? Because I don't see any novelty about it. With some people, it is a condition which is present all the time. Now, you take a condition which is present all the time, and the results of that condition will be uniform. This uniformity of a result will in time become monotonous. By the law of its being, it's fatiguing. If you had manifested fatigue upon noticing that you had been an ass, that would have been logical. That would have been rational. Whereas it seems to me that to manifest surprise was to be again an ass. Now, this is because the condition of intellect that can enable a person to be surprised and stirred is by inert monotonous, is a now that is enough. No, Reggie-son. Stop where you are before you get yourself into trouble. And don't bother me any more for some days or a week. And it please, for I cannot abide your clack. Come, I like that. I don't want to talk. I tried to get out of talking. If you didn't want to hear my clack, what did you keep intruding the conversation for on me? I never dreamed of such a thing. Well, you did it, anyway. And I have a right to feel hurt, and I do feel hurt, to have you treat me so. It seems to me that when a person goads and crowds in a manner forces another person to talk, it is neither very fair nor very good-mannered to call what he says clack. Oh, snuffle, do, and break your heart, you poor thing. Somebody fetch this sick dollar sugar rag. Look you, Sir Jean le Maître, do you feel absolutely certain about that thing? What thing? Why, that Joan and Pierre are going to take precedence of all the lay nobleness hereabouts except the Duke of Alagon. I think there is no doubt of it. The standard-bearer was deep in thoughts and dreams a few moments. Then the silken velvet expanse of his vast breast rose and fell in a high sigh, and he said, "Dear, oh dear, what a lift it is. It just shows what luck can do. Well, I don't care. I shouldn't care to be a painted accident. I shouldn't value it. I am prouder to have climbed up to where I am just by sheer natural merit, and I would be to ride the very sun in the zenith, and have to reflect that I was nothing but poor little accident me, and got shot up there out of somebody else's catapult. To me, merit is everything. In fact, the only thing. All else is dross." Just then the bugles blew. The assembly, that's what it was, and that cut our talk very short. The days began to waste away. Nothing decided, nothing done. The army was full of zeal, and it was also hungry. It got no pay. The treasury was getting empty. It was becoming impossible to feed it. Under pressure of privation, it began to fall apart and dispersed, which pleased the trifling court exceedingly. Joan's distress was pitiful to see. She was obliged to stand helpless while a victorious army dissolved away until hardly the skeleton of it was left. At last, one day, she went to the castle of Loches, where the king was idling. She found him consulting with three of his councillors, Robert Le Meton, a former Chancellor of France, Christophe de Haraucourt, and Jérôme Machet. The Bastard of Orleans was also present, and it is through him that we know what happened. Joan threw herself at the king's feet and embraced his knees, saying, "Noble Delphine, prithee hold no more of these long and numerous councils, but come, and come quickly. To Rheims, receive your crown." Christopher de Haraucourt said, "It is your voices that command you to say that to the king." "Yes, and urgently." "Then will you not tell us, in the king's presence, in what way the voices communicate with you?" It was another sly attempt to trap Joan into indiscreet admissions and dangerous pretences, but nothing came of it. Joan's answer was simple and straightforward, and smooth. Bishop was not able to find any fault with it. She said that when she met with people who doubted the truth of her mission, she went aside and prayed, complaining of the distrust of these. And then the comforting voices were heard of her ear saying, soft and low, "Go forward, daughter of God, and I will help thee." Then she added, "When I hear that, the joy is in my heart. Oh, it is insupportable." The bastard said that when she said these words, her face lit up like a flame. She was like one in ecstasy. Joan pleaded, persuaded, reasoned, gaining ground little by little, but opposed step by step by the council. She begged, she implored, leave to march. When they could answer nothing further, they granted that perhaps it had been a mistake to let the army waste away. But how could they help it now? How could we march without an army? Raise one, said Joan. But it will take 6 weeks. No matter. Begin. Let us begin. It is too late. Without doubt, the Duke of Bedford has been gathering troops to push to secure all his strongholds on the Loire. Yes, while we have been disbanding ours, and pitted his. But we must throw away no more time. We must bestir ourselves. The king objected that he could not venture towards Reims, for with those strong places on the Loire in his path. But Joan said, we will break them up, then you can march. With that plan, the king was willing to venture assent. He could sit around out of danger while the road was being cleared. Joan came back in great spirits. Straight away everything was stirring. Proclamations were issued calling for men. A recruiting camp was established at Sels-en-Berry, and the commons and nobles began to flock to it with enthusiasm. A deal of the month of May had been wasted, and yet by the 6th of June Joan had swept together a new army and was ready to march. She had 8,000 men. Think of that. Think of gathering together such a body as that in a little region. And these were veteran soldiers too. In fact, most of them, men in France, were soldiers. When you came to that, for the wars had lasted generations now. Yes, most Frenchmen were soldiers, and admirable runners too, both by practice and inheritance. They had done next to nothing but run for near a century. But that was not their fault. They had had no fair and proper leadership. At least leaders with a fair and proper chance. A way back, king and court got the habit of being treacherous to their leaders. Then the leaders easily got the habit of disobeying the king and going their own way, each of himself and nobody for the lot. And nobody could win victories that way. Hence running became the habit of the French troops, and no wonder. Yet all that those troops needed in order to be good fighters was a leader who would attend strictly to business, a leader with authority in his hands in place of 10th of it, along with the 9 and other generals equipped with the equal 10th apiece. They had a leader rightly clothed with authority now, and with a head and heart bent on war of the most intensely businesslike and earnest sort, and there would be results. No doubt of that. They had Joan of Arc, and under that leadership their legs would lose the art and mystery of running. Yes, Joan was in great spirits. She was here and there and everywhere, all over the camp, by day, by night, pushing things, and wherever she came, charging down the lines, reviewing the troops, it was good to hear them break out and cheer, and nobody could help cheering. She was such a vision of young bloom and beauty and grace, such an incarnation of pluck and life and just go. She was growing more and more ideally beautiful every day, as was plain to be seen. And these were days of development, for she was well past 17 now. In fact, she was getting close upon 17 and a half indeed. Just a little woman, as you may say. The 2 young Counts de la Ville arrived one day, fine young fellows, allied to the greatest and most illustrious house of France. They could not rest till they had seen Joan of Arc. So the king sent for them and presented them to her. And, you may believe, she filled the bill of their expectations. When they heard that rich voice of hers, they must have thought it was a flute. And when they saw her deep eyes and her face, and the soul that looked out of that face, you could see that the sight of her stirred them like a poem, like lofty eloquence, like martial music. One of them wrote home to his people, and in his letter he said, "It seemed something divine to see and hear her. Ah, yes, it was a true word. Truer word was never spoken." He saw her when she was ready to begin her march and open the campaign, and this is what he said about it. She was clothed all in white armour, save her head. In her hand she carried a little battle-axe, and when she was ready to mount her great black horse, he reared and plunged and would not let her. Then she said, "Lead him to the cross." This cross was in front of the church close by. So they led him there. Then she mounted, and he never budged, any more than if he had been tied. Then she turned toward the door of the church and said, in her soft, womanly voice, "You, priests and people of the church, make processions and pray to God for us." Then she spurred away under her standard, with a little axe in her hand, crying, "Forward, march!" One of her brothers, who came 8 days ago, departed with her. He also was clad in white armour. I was there, and I saw it too. I saw it all, just as he pictures it, and I see it yet. The little battle axe, the dainty plumed cap, the white armour, all in the soft June afternoon. I see it just as if it were yesterday. And I rode with the staff, the personal staff, the staff of Joan of Arc. That young count was dying to go too, but the king held him back for the present. But Joan had made him a promise. In his letter he said, "She told me that when the king starts for Reims, I shall go with him, but God grant I may not have to wait until then, but may have a part in the battles." She made him that promise when she was taking leave of my lady, the Duchesse d'Alencon. The Duchess was exacting a promise, so it seemed a proper time for others to do the like. The Duchess was troubled for her husband, for she foresaw desperate fighting, and she held Joan in her breast and stroked her hair lovingly and said, "You must watch over him, my dear. Take care of him and send him back to me safe. I require it of you. I will not let you go till you promise." Joan said, "I give you the promise with all my heart. That it is not just words, it is a promise. You shall have him back without a hurt. Do you believe, and are you satisfied with me now?" The Duchess could not speak, but she kissed Joan on the forehead, and so they parted. We left on the 6th and stopped over at Romorantin. Then, on the 9th, Joan entered Orleans in state, under triumphal arches, with the welcoming cannon thundering, the seas of welcoming flags fluttering in the breeze. The grand staff rode with her, clothed in shining splendours of costume and decorations. The Duke of Aragon, the bastard of Orleans, the Sire de Boussic, Marshal of France, the Lord de Granville, the Master of Crossbowmen, the Sire de Coulon, Admiral of France, Ambroise de Lourdes, Antoine de Vigenoux, Carl the Higher, Gateau de Broussac, and other illustrious captains. It was grand times, the usual shoutings and packed multitudes, the usual crush to get the sight of Joan. But at last we crowded through to our old lodgings, and I saw old Boucher and the wife, that dear Catherine, gather Joan to their hearts and smother her with kisses. And my heart ached for her so, for I could have kissed Catherine better than anybody, and more, longer, yet was not thought of, not for that office. And I so famished for it. Ah, she was so beautiful, and oh, so sweet. I had loved her the first day I ever saw her, and from that day forth she was sacred to me. I have carried her image in my heart for 63 years, all lonely, yes, solitary, for it never had any company. And I am grown so old, but it is as fresh and young and merry and mischievous, and lovely and sweet and pure, and witching and divine as it was when it crept in there, bringing benediction and peace in its habitation, so long ago, for it is not aged, not a day. And that is the next part of Joan of Arc, from her beloved friend who was with her from a child until her last days. Thank you for listening. If you heard any noise in the background, that's Dougal at the side of me. He snores a lot, he moves a lot, and etc. So yeah, it's my dog. Thank you for listening, and many blessings.